evening, ladies and gentlemen. Since the Honorable Minister will be joining us very soon, so we'll keep the conversations within the time limits. Uh, Based on the the conversations that we had during the day, I think having a good public infrastructure as an underlying principle was quite apparent during those conversations, not just to decongest our roads, but also to have a breathable and livable environment. So I'll straight away get into the conversation, and I'll come to Amit, you first. We see Park Plus is like an ecosystem in itself. You know, you have payments, you have challans, you have parking, you have FASTag, etc. Now, when you talk about the topic of connected ecosystems, while we understand there are technology solutions, for instance, we have FASTag for parking, which has eased toll collections. We have touchless parking solutions, which has eased parking in the country. But somehow these solutions, they talk to themselves only. I mean, they are not connected, connected in the sense. So, what, according to you, can be the infrastructure strategy to kind of have them connected in future and also to ensure they constantly evolve?
Hi. Thank you everyone. Thank you for being me here. I think the whole auto ecosystem is getting connected. Like the cars are having more and more chips. Like starting with like at a point of time, cars were sold on mileages and horsepower. Today the cars are being sold on features, how connected it is to the external world. Like for example, things like now when you drive a car, can you locate the parking on the runtime? The payments, whether for toll, whether for parking, etc., can happen through FASTag. EV charging location, etc., could happen in the same way. Like the way I visualize future, couple of years down the line. For example, if there is a road accident, if the airbags open, can system automatically intimate an ambulance to come in? Similar things like, for example, today, the car sensors are already there for fuel. So, like, why should I be going to a petrol pump? Like, shouldn't, like, the system automatically tells someone that my car has now lower petrol than, say, 5 liter. Somebody should come in and autofill it itself. Similarly, like, for example, आज की डेट में टायर में हवा कितनी है? Sensors available है. So when the sensors are available, somebody should just come in and do the needful. Why should I? So the idea is everything should become trigger based and things should happen automatically without involving the intimation to the user. Similarly, like for example, we talk about PUCC, etc. Somebody has to, now most of the people here would not even know when their PUCC gets expired because it's a once in a year activity. Now, shouldn't it be automatically like every PUCC, there is a date, there is an expiry happening, the car is at a location, somebody should come, check, issue a new PUCC certificate and it's done. So everywhere, if it is possible for us to create that kind of a ecosystem where all the connectivity which is now today enabled by more and more chips in the car can be used for a lot of other things.
Dr. Jain, I'll come to you. As an EV company, when we talk about interoperability of the systems, we have chargers, we have apps, different apps, to kind of, to use different chargers. And, we can also have a single travel card for multimodal ecosystem. So according to you, when can we see this interoperability? Do we have the enough data for this? And if yes, then how can also ensure its safety?
We have the interoperability expert sitting right next to us. So when we talk about specifically the bus infrastructure, the buses that operate in India currently are mostly under something called as a GCC model, gross cost contract model, where a manufacturer makes buses and then operates them as well, either by themselves or with partnership with somebody on behalf of the STU, and STU pays you for that. And for running those operations, STU either gives you a depot land or gives you a depot. So until ma'am took over this and designed a wonderful tender, everybody, say all the OEMs were doing their own sort of charging socket. Someone were doing GBT, someone was doing CCS, somebody might be doing. So when Mahua ma'am designed the tender, when she was with CESL, she made it compulsory for everyone to have the same charging technology. So now it was standardized, at least in the bus space, and all the buses that are getting manufactured, irrespective of the OEM, are using the same CCS2 charging technology. And there are discussions around that currently. When we get a route, it is designed in a way that we come back to our depot for charging, and then we do the second loop. Now there are active discussions around that I can go charge at the nearest depot, which might not be mine, could be someone else's, and we'll design a payment mechanism or something for that. But that is happening to make routes more efficient.
Mr. Acharya, your thoughts?
Thank you. Thank you. It's really good to see a huge turnout. So congratulations for doing this kind of event, and thank you for having me. I think before I, thank you for for that, Aanchal. Let me, I think, maybe remind the audience, because I'm not sure everybody here, or at least a significant number of people, were involved in the interoperability discussions early on. And they're still there, these discussions. So let me take you all back many years ago, where there were hardly any EVs on the road. And from the Government of India point of view, you say, there are 3 or 4 technologies out there for how you can charge your car. So we don't know what India will bring. Let's put all 3 available out there and let the market decide which of those 3 will come up. So that was step number 1. Then we found, after putting some charging stations, that one of those these so-called things like protocols, they're called protocols, they're a little bit geeky, so they have some acronyms and stuff. One of those acronyms, there were no takers for it. So then the government went back and say, what do we do with this thing called Chadamo? There are no takers for it, so let's get rid of it. Okay, so we got rid of it. The government said, okay, maybe the market's picking up the other 2 things. Those other 2 charging protocols, let's forget the other one. Then that was as far as the policy is concerned. And behind the policy, there is some money. There was subsidy being offered at that time. So when subsidy is offered, yes, then the government has the ability, the right as well, to put some specs against it. When we were designing the tender, at that time, it seemed like a great opportunity where we were not a regulatory body. We were not even a policy body. But because the number of buses was so many, that at some point we all thought inside the committee that if this tender is successful, we didn't even know it was going to be successful. It was a little bit of a, nobody had done it before, that if it is successful, it could be policy defining. Because it was 5,500 buses. In fact, all of Delhi's blue buses, and now your green ones as well. We just said, let's just put a certain charging protocol out there. That's it. We did make some OEMs a little unhappy. They were unhappy. And I did get a lot of pushback at that time saying, why are you going one way when the government has 3 different things on offer? Why does your tender? But our response was, well, look, it's a 5,500 bus tender. It's a big enough one. So if you're going to anyway supply 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, I think you should be able to just make this one adjustment. Because if it works, then in future tenders, everybody will use the same thing. Delhi will have the same thing from Bangalore, will have the same thing from some other city. So where I realize that the market keeps asking for interoperability from a policy point of view, not that I'm in the government now, but I fully understand that. I think the response back to the market would be, it's in the interest of every charging station to make themselves discoverable. It's in everyone's interest. So I would keep telling, and I keep telling everybody, and everybody keeps telling everybody, open up your APIs, make it available to everybody. That automatically will define which is your protocol. From many design people, we consulted a lot of design people back in the day. I opened my app today, and it still has a lot of jargon. It still asks me what size my battery is. Now, I know, but I don't expect everybody who's driving a car to get into the details of a battery. So can we please just start making it a little more user-friendly? I get messages from charging companies saying, it takes me a lot of time to decipher this. All of these are barriers to interoperability. Everything is not a technical spec.
Switching gears, air quality is something that I've also wanted to talk about. And Mr. Acharya, because You have deep experience in your carbon markets, renewable energy and all. India has a target of 30% EVs by 2030 amid the worsening air quality. Do you think we have the bandwidth to have that kind of numbers on the roads? And whether the EV vehicle is actually green? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, there are two parts. There were two questions in your question. One is, will we get to our 30%? Yes. And then, of course, what about our carbon markets? And if we get to it, is it green? So let's put a real number out there. A bus that Aanchal makes, when she charges it with renewable power, she'll get about 45 credits per bus, 40 to 45. Let's be conservative, 40. Now, from a business point of view, you won't want to leave that value on the table. So all buses, provided you're supplying it to the government on this city bus basis, it is also in everybody's interest to move to renewables as well. You're hitting the targets of the distribution company. For many states in India, it is cheaper. It's not necessarily in Delhi, but it is cheaper in a lot of states to just buy it out. I haven't met any charge point operator so far who does not have the aspiration, or at least the arrangements already in place, to give you renewable power. So when India is asked this question, are your EVs even green, or green at all, or fully green? I mean, let me throw it back to the international community. One is, where else is it fully green? Here, our renewables is cheaper. So it is everyone's incentive. All of the government tenders we did left it open, so that efficiency gain was captured by the STU, who pays the bill, who pays part of the bill, and the private company who pays the rest of the bill. Right? So as far as will we get there, and is it green? I think it will head there. It is in market forces to make us head there. Now, the carbon credit question is, will we hit the 30%? And the question is, do we need to hit the 30%? We're ahead. We're on track to be meeting our NDC goals. That's an international diplomacy question, that we go outside and we declare our compliance or our achievement against the NDC goals. And if we don't do this, I mean, at the risk of sounding, our priority is right now diesel. Our economic priority is to reduce that diesel bill. Our daily priority as commuters is an efficient, comfortable, safe, and please fume-free infrastructure. Now, the carbon piece, and much as I've been in this business for the past 20 years, is economic value not to be left on the table. So will we want to sell it? If Aanchal gets a good price for it, she will sell it, and she should sell it.
Mr. Sekhar, same question to you, sir. Your thoughts? No country is as green as everybody claims it.
Yeah, so I don't think the question should really be, are EVs truly green? Because it's no different from our targets on renewable energy, because the grid is not green yet, at least. Just extension of Ms. Acharya's data on buses. A typical electric car would need at least 1 lakh kilometers before it is carbon neutral, right? And then it can start getting positive. So clearly the way forward is renewable energy integration. And on this, also to address the interoperability question that, again, Ms. Acharya was answering to, I'd like to bring your attention to something that BESCOM in Bangalore has just opened, and we're very proud to have supported this. At their largest charging hub, we're very happy to know we've supported them with renewable energy, with rooftop solar, using second life batteries for energy storage, and these are batteries from electric cars, and charging these vehicles at the hub. Now, what's interesting from an interoperability standpoint is that the application which they're using for accessing the chargers is on the beacon protocol, which means one does not have to open their APIs. They just have to get their respective applications to get integrated with the beacon protocol. That's a small piece of code, and then all the charges are visible to any user. Not just that, even though we've installed the rooftop at this particular location, now because these chargers are now on the beacon protocol, as a user, I can access this renewable energy from any other part of the city just because we are on the same protocol. So interoperability is already here. It's really about large-scale utility. Now, coming back to your air quality question, in addition to EVs, I think there is a lot of focus on shift from personal vehicles to public transportation, and yeah, I think that has to continue to grow. There's no other option. You have to look at increased public transport utilization, and of course, transition to EVs, and hopefully that will address some bit of your air quality issues.
Your inputs, Ms. Jain. Ms. Jain, what do you think about it? The target, the EV target of 30%. You know, be as an OEM, how do you look at it?
So see, we have been growing at quite a high growth rate over the time from where we started. So you know, from starting to where we started the company in around 2017. Now we already have more than 2,500 vehicles, electric buses on road, which is probably the second biggest number at this point in time. However, the growth has been slightly slower than one would have expected or thought of. There are multiple reasons for why the growth has been slower than one thought of. You know, the supply chain is still getting very comfortable with that high volumes that are being demanded. The domestic vendors are increasing and so on. But I do believe the country will achieve the EV target that we've set. The policy has been extremely supportive. Again, I can say this for the bus segment. There is continuous dialogue with policymakers in understanding the problems that we as OEMs face, how those can be solved for, how we can progress further and so on. So that dialogue that happens is very, very encouraging. It is not that you are an OEM, go solve your problems, just give us more buses or give us more vehicles. There is a very continuous engagement with policymakers. Okay, this is the problem you face. For example, the problem we were facing in financing was, will the STUs pay or not? I think in record time, we got payment security mechanism. So that is why I feel like we will achieve our targets, maybe not in the same time frame that we are hoping for, maybe in a little longer time frame, but we are very hopeful and excited about that.
So, okay, Amit, you think policy support is adequate enough?
I think the government has been fairly proactive when it comes around the EV. If you look at the different states coming up different policies, centrally coming up with different policies, I think a couple of things which are probably more needed is a more longer term support. Like when the policies, for example, a policy expires today, the next policy would come back after 3 months. And it creates a lot of uncertainty in the mind of the people, or uncertainty like how it will proceed. Similarly, like if there can be more uniform policies across the country, like for example, if you take the example of Delhi, Delhi is not actually, if you look at it, is connected with 5 states, 4 or 5 states. Now the guy goes to Noida also, guy goes to Gurgaon also, Rajasthan also. So how do you make consistent policies across? When the policies are not consistent, policies change, and there is a gap between the policies getting implemented, then there is a problem. So if those things get addressed, I think rest of the time, I think the government has been fairly proactive. PLIs have been working, the fairly decent support in private as well as in public forums. I think that's good.
Ms. Acharya, I wanted to talk around the policy part purely from the perspective of air quality. What's your take?
Oh, that's $1 million question. What's my take, you know? It cuts party lines, and it must cut party lines. And I have not shied to say that even inside the government. It must cut party lines. It is, I think, at some point now, having spent some time inside the government, this is a political decision. And it's a political decision of many parties. And I think now, unfortunately, sadly for us, certainly in Delhi, when it gets really bad is when we talk about it. And maybe that's the only way to do it. Maybe that's the only way to get, we need, like I hate to say it, but the more we talk about, you only talk about it when the air is very bad. This air quality issue, there's just been so much of studies around what causes it. And, it's the topic of discussion. I remember some years ago, the biggest discussion on the table was where to place your charger. And everybody had a view on it. And this, I feel, is another topic just like that. Everyone has a view on whether it comes from dust, it comes from roadside dust or construction or traffic or, whatever it is a political decision, because at the end of the day, if you were to work on mitigating it, if you use an emissions trading scheme, there is a jurisdiction issue. If you do a command and control, some kind of policy directive, that is also a jurisdiction issue. So we switch off our construction in Delhi. Other states don't necessarily follow the same thing, right? So at the end of the day, I think air pollution for us is perhaps even a collective issue because it's a political issue.
Mr. Sekhar, I'll come to you. Want you to talk about the capital investments also. What kind of private investment you see coming in, to upgrade the public infrastructure? How do you see the funding to upgrade public infrastructure?
Public infrastructure for buses, for chargers?
Overall ecosystem.
Well, I think the issue right now is not so much capital, honestly. Let's look at charge point operators, right? Now, the problem that they are facing is that across states, there's completely different regulatory frameworks. Their charges, the upfront fixed charges that they have to pay for their connections, the electricity tariffs that they have to pay, the local real estate requirements, of course, the GST registrations between all states, it's just too high. There is no uniformity across states, and that is, it's not really killing the market, but it's really holding back the pace at which this sector can grow. Now, having said that, it's also very interesting that CPOs just require anywhere between 15 to 20% of utilization factor for them to just make money. So that's already a very low number. And they're not able to achieve this, they're not able to expand, penetrate the market because of these regulatory issues, because they have so much money locked in fixed fees, in deposits with these discoms. Even when they're cancelling a connection, they just don't get the money back. So that's one thing that's holding back. I think on the buses side, the passenger vehicles, I think the government's doing enough, and that sector is growing massively on its own. On the public transport side, the government's, there are two schemes which are ongoing right now, the PM e-bus scheme, the e-drive scheme. However, that's still only 7% or maybe between 7 to 8% of the overall bus population in India. That's addressing only the public sector buses. The rest of it, the 93%, 90 to 93% is the private sector. And that is what requires, some fillip in terms of financing. That is their entry barrier. Financing is the entry barrier because these entrepreneurs, they're very small, 1, 2, 3 buses, maybe 5, maybe the biggest of them will be 10 buses as bus owners. So their entry barrier is financing, and that's where the government will have to do something in order to help them. But otherwise, on the private sector side, for infrastructure, there is no dearth of money. There is a requirement for uniformity in regulations.
Okay. Ms. Jain, there is no dearth of money from private sector perspective. Is it okay?
I see. From the private sector perspective, you have to understand why do buses work in the STUs and have not sort of cracked the code as much for the private sector. It is the high upfront cost. And STU buses for sure is going to run about 180 to 200 kilometers per day, and it runs 365 days a year. The contracts we sign are for 12 years. So the TCO calculation when we do is quite immediate, as opposed to when we talk about one of the biggest consumer of private buses in India is the school bus. Now, is the school bus. In India, we sell about 25 to 35,000 school buses new every year. However, a school bus runs maximum 100 kilometers a day. It runs only for 200 days a year. We get as many holidays one can get. And nobody would like to send their kid in a 12-year school bus, right? So we assume a life of about 8 years. So therefore, the economics for a school bus is extremely different from an STU bus that's running 200 kilometers a day. So the way we want to increase the acceptability of these buses in the private market, which is the same economics we look for an office bus, is we have, as OEMs, work substantially on reducing the cost down. The cost reductions will have to come from reduction in our cost of manufacturing, being more smart about it, being more innovative about it. But at least for the initial push, there might be a policy question which can arise here. Now, again, I keep going back to you, with the wonderful tender that ma'am had designed, the price discovered without the subsidy was actually lower than the price that was being discovered with subsidy. So maybe we can have a case for a policy push that brings subsidies for the school buses, for the office buses, for the private buses. Cost of financing, yes. I think what we've seen is, at least in the electric bus space, the banks are accepting the bus as a more stable product now and are slightly more comfortable financing it as a commercial vehicle loan that they were not that comfortable 4-5 years ago. And I think I see bigger challenges in cost of financing for smaller two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and so on, where they have to mostly get it through NBFCs at an 18-19%, which is a very high interest rate. For the few order demands we have seen from the private sector, again, we'll have to solve this problem at a broader level, but financing a bus seems to be slightly easier than financing a three-wheeler or a two-wheeler. When I look for policy support, then I think that is the subsidy which may help in the initial kickoff in the private bus sector. We at ourselves are working very heavily on how we can bring the cost down to make it a more acceptable product for the TCO to work, for the break even to come sooner.
So apart from the infrastructure upgrade, I think the other most important question is around the mindset issue. The people on the road, the civic sense who are using this infrastructure. What can be done to get people in the right mindset of using this infrastructure? And I would want responses from all of you, one by one. I know it's tricky, but still. Anyone? The civic sense, right mindset.
Someone asked me, I mean, this is all anecdotal. Somebody asked me, a news journal was running a story on whether Delhi's electric buses are in fact getting more ridership. And I didn't have enough time to check in with DTC and ask them, show me that bus number XYZ, and the data exists, but because it was a news journal, there was very little turnaround time. So together with the Delhi Transport Department, we took the team and I said, come, let's just go in the heat of summer. So this was August last year. And we went and I think we took buses for about 8 hours in the day. We stepped out of home at about 6:30 and we stopped during lunch. In fact, lunchtime we went to Rajghat depot and we had lunch there and watched the buses coming in. And in that time must have interviewed about 150 people because there was a big team with us. And they went back saying, people are waiting a few more minutes for the AC bus to come along. And there is a system in Delhi where you can now, in some depots, tell when the next bus is coming in. And Delhi anyway is doing CNG versus CNG and electric, and now many of the old CNGs are gone. And certainly the orange colored buses that you used to see here where the windows were open, what people call cluster buses, they were orange in color and the windows were open. People would not want to get in there. So this news journal went back very happy that Delhi's electrification business appears to be working. And when you're in there, the women would say that, the lights are nice, it's bright, there are lots of, I feel safer here. It is certainly a more comfortable ride. And it is just comfortable not just because it's noise-free, it's just, the braking system is hydraulic, it works, right? So this is anecdotal. DTC, we don't have time for data, but this news journal went back very happy, and DTC also went back very happy, and I was equally happy. So that's my contribution here.
Nice to hear that. Yeah.
I think for getting the consumer adoption, the most important thing is the access. Does the consumer even know that there are things available? I'll take a couple of examples of, for example, what we at Park Plus have been doing. Like in Bombay, the best bus depots, roughly about 70 bus depots spread across the whole Bombay. Now in the morning time, the buses leave the depot. They come back in the evening. The whole depot is available during the whole day, empty. What we did was, we have tied up with Bombay Best guys, and those bus depots are now available for consumers to come and park their cars in the daytime. So what happens is, you are able to discover the parking spots near your office using those bus depots. You can park your car there for the whole day. In the evening, you can collect the car back. So Best is actually able to make money. From a consumer point of view, there is more adoption. Absolutely. And Best is able to make money with those empty slots. Absolutely. We are trying to replicate the same model, because in India, it is very hard to get land for separate things. Like we can create MLCPs, etc. People don't even go. Most of the MLCPs in Delhi don't work. Correct. Because either they are too far away, or it is too time-taking kind of a thing. Like look the example of this hotel itself. Now this hotel would have parking spots, which will probably get used only in events or marriages. Rest of the time, the slots are available but not used. And there is a whole Nehru Place market just besides it, which will be struggling for parking. And then there is a metro station whose parkings are completely available in the night. Now, if we are able to put it on the app, make it easy for consumers to choose between parkings here versus depot versus the market, daytime, evening, morning, events, marriages, etc. It makes it very easy for, and then combine it with things like valet, etc. So that there are no road parkings on the road. See, the problem today we face on the roads is more because nobody knows. As a consumer, I don't even know what to do. If I come here, I'll park on the road. And this is like a three-lane road. One lane is get blocked because of the parking itself. So I think making, same thing ma'am talked about, like, because the consumer now knows that there is a AC bus coming in 2 minutes later. If he would have not known that there is a bus coming 2 minutes later, he will pick up the first bus that comes in. But because now he has the information, he is able to make those choices. So I think our ability to tell consumers clearly so that they are able to at least make a choice. If they don't even know, then they can't make a choice.
In our perspective, I think what we've observed, we are running buses across 31, 32 cities in the country. I don't see there is any place where the bus goes empty or there is any lack of ridership. The ridership, if anything, is always on the higher side, and the bus is more full than it should be. I think, at least in the bus space, we have not seen lack of ridership. Again, all these buses are electric, they're air conditioning. Again, similar stories we've heard. We've heard that people would wait even up to 20 minutes after their day's work to wait for an AC buses. When electric buses were introduced, there was an upskilling overall. These buses are more comfortable in all dimensions that you can think of, not just electric. I think what we need more is more buses. The per capita number of buses that we have, our population, I think is 1/4 or 1/5 of what the global standard should be. So that is what we need more. And again, I always pitch for one thing that we need, and infra status is the bus space. Buses don't have infra status. But it is the quickest way of getting people around in a big number, has very low gestation, right? You give me a bus order, I can give you a bus in 3 months, as opposed to a metro, which will take forever to build. So if you were to, if we do get infra status in the buses, that'll reduce our costs even further, ease financing and stuff like that.
Do you want to comment on the finance part? So
Sure.
maybe when you're done with this round.
Mr. Sekhar, you can give your comments.
Yeah, so since we're completely out of time, I think one aspect that that we tend to generally ignore is that when a service is provided and to ensure that it's maintained at a good level, you must charge, right? So when you talk about civic sense, free parking, on-street parking is a prime shining example of how something that is prime, very important for the city. When it's not charged, it's exploited. So, in all the examples that were given, it's very clear that infrastructure, if provided, there are users, they're willing to pay, certainly for good infrastructure. You will not see buses, for example, since we're on the topic of buses, which do not have enough patrons, even more so when there's information available.
Mr. Acharya.
Okay, thank you. So let me just address this finance question that you raised. Yeah? There are I put it into 3 buckets, and I'd actually even appeal to everyone here, because you're all here because you're interested in some element at least of green mobility. The first and foremost, just put yourself in the shoes of somebody wanting to buy something or invest in something. You will look at the validity of the contract. Is it even fair? Is it transparent? Does it work for you? So when we were designing the buses in the government, which is, by the way, a very small chunk of all buses that roam around in India, it just became, we were lucky, it became quite big. It became, we have OEMs that were able to produce. But really, it's like, I think, 10% of the total bus population. Our only focus at that time was, how do I get this contract to be acceptable to private enterprise? And also acceptable to the government. But in this case, the government is an STU who has normally not seen contracts like this. So that's number one, get your contract straight. As far as private buses, that 90% of other buses that are roaming around, you want to go from here to Jaipur, there are lots of operators, lots. The mind of funds, this is something we're working on now. So this new company I've hatched, it's like less than 7 months old. One of the experiments is to say, look, if we can get the contracts right for these STU buses, why can't we get the contracts right for private operators? No dearth of demand, by the way, you'll be surprised. They all want to move to electric for various reasons. Of course, it's cheaper and it's just status-wise better. Every single infrastructure fund that I have spoken to says, how will I know if these operator guys will pay me back? And then you dig further into that, there is a perception here. The last time, let me be honest, the last time I took a bus for the sake of transportation was when I was in college. And after that, I never took a bus. I didn't even come across companies like Red Bus that sell tickets. So when we're telling these investors today that, look, our payments are coming from some other entity, the ticketing entity, they've never even heard of it. They've never heard of Red Bus. They've heard of Make My Trip because they are all aeroplane people just like you and me. So, this is a human perception that makes it very difficult for capital at scale to move in. Now, if capital doesn't move in at scale, then what happens? You have a pilot of 5 crores, and you have a pilot of 20 crores, and then you have a pilot and before you finish it, you're 2 years down the road, right? So when you're designing, we're designing it at scale. This is one huge problem. And the third problem is, I don't want to bring out the problems, but to what extent where do you need the government? School buses. We have an active demand, unsolicited active demand from Delhi schools for 275 school buses. I looked around the country. The last time I saw a school bus, it's not hard to tell Aanchal, please make me a school bus. But it's very hard to ask her to give it to me at the price at which I don't charge your children an extra fee just because the school wants to go electric. So I mean, our products itself have to be designed for India, for our affordability, which means this bus will have to become cheaper. It's not as she can't reduce the price beyond a point, which means it goes to business models. How, maybe the batteries are someone else's, maybe I lease it, maybe I retrofit it. I don't know what the answers are, but we have this unsolicited, really unsolicited Delhi schools, 275 buses, where the principal has called me twice, saying if you can do electrification of Delhi state buses, why can't you do schools?
Soon, very soon. I promise you something in June.
Great. I think.
Exactly that.
Great. I think we have a lot to talk about the subject, but the time is up. So we'll leave the audience with that thought. Any questions you have, you may connect offline, but I'd like to thank our audience, our panelists, for joining us today and taking time out. Thanks a lot. Thank you.